Geico makes it easy to get affordable renter's insurance in as little as 90 seconds. That way, you have more energy for harder things, like the laundry. Why is it so difficult to fold clothes? They just end up wrinkly anyway, or on the floor in a pile that just sits there, taunting you. But with renter's insurance through Geico, at least you know that those clothes and the other things you love are covered. Get more with Geico.
Coming up on episode 228 of Wheel Bearings, we've got the 2022 Honda Civic Hatchback Sport Touring, the Mini SE, the Lucid Air, the Chevy Silverado EV, Chrysler's Airflow concept, and where the Chrysler brand is headed in the coming years. Waymo and Geely hook up to build a custom robotaxi, interview with Chris Feuell, the CEO of the Chrysler brand, and a whole bunch of listener questions. All that and more coming up next. Did you know you can support Wheel Bearings directly? Head to patreon.com/wheelbearingsmedia and you can become a patron today. Your contributions will help fund the platforms and tools we use to bring the podcast to you. And exclusives and improvements are already on the way thanks to your generosity. So if you want to be part of an automotive podcast like no other, head to patreon.com/wheelbearingsmedia. This is episode 228 of Wheel Bearings, the first show for 2022. I'm Sam Abu-Al-Samad from Guidehouse Insights.
I am Nicole Wakeland. We'll say Forbes Wheels today.
And I am Roberto Baldwin, and we're going to say Tom's Guide. There's a man named Tom, and he has a guide.
Ooh, a guide from Tom. They do cars now?
Yeah.
Oh, excellent.
They'll do cars as soon as they finish writing up this review. No, they
Got to start somewhere. There's always a first car story. All right. Who wants to go first?
I think you should go first, Sam. You never go first.
All right, I'll go first.
On the spot.
I have right now the 2022 Honda Civic Hatchback Sport Touring in the driveway. And it happens to be in the same shade of red as the 2017 Honda Civic EX hatchback that lives in our garage, 365 days a year. I like driving it. I really like driving it. Mm-hmm. I'm less enamored with the new design of the 22 Civic.
Really?
I think the last generation, when they brought that out, I really liked the design. It was such a departure from the previous couple of generations, which were kind of bland looking. The last one, the 2016 to 2021 Civic, was, I think, quite a bold design, both the sedan and the coupe and the hatchback. And so much so that when the hatchback came out, my wife decided that was the car she wanted to replace the Jetta TDI wagon that was going back to Volkswagen. And we love that car. It's a fantastic car. And the new one, it's not bad, but it's a little dull.
It's got less pizzazz.
It definitely has a lot less pizzazz, at least on the outside.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of pizzazz with the previous generation.
Yeah, and it's in some ways maybe a little too much, especially on the back end of the hatchback. Was maybe
There's too much pizzazz.
the big fake vents in the rear corners. But aside from that, we really like the shape of the old one, and the new one, it's roughly the same size. I think it's about an inch longer. It looks very much like the current generation of the Accord, like a 7/8 scale Accord, especially the sedan, and even the hatchback, is pretty close to that. It's almost like the sedan, but with the trunk, where instead of the trunk lid ending at the bottom of the rear glass, it extends up around the rear glass and the whole back end opens up. So, in cars this size, I am absolutely a huge booster of hatchbacks because, especially with modern, compact and midsize sedans, because they've all gone to the fastback profile, which I have no issue with. I like it. But if you're going to do a trunk with that kind of profile, it inevitably ends up meaning you have a very small trunk opening. Mm-hmm. And even with a fold-down rear seat, it limits what you can put in the back. the hatchback, you've got this big, giant rear opening that you can put all kinds of stuff in there, which can be very, very handy. And then when you put the rear seat, fold the rear seats down, it becomes even more so. So the current the 22 Civic hatchback, you've got 24.5 cubic feet behind the rear seats, which is roughly about twice the volume that's available in the sedan. And then you can fold those seats down, and you can put really large objects in there, which is fantastic. It's very handy when you're helping a child move. You can throw all their stuff in the back of that. It's very, very useful for that. The interior is a big step up from the previous generation of Civic, and especially in the one that I'm driving, which is the Sport Touring, which is the top of the line model. It feels more premium. They've shifted away from the touchscreen interface, the touchscreen being embedded in the dashboard like it was on our Civic, to the more typical now, tablet standing up on top of the dashboard layout. But it does have a volume knob and physical controls for the climate control. It has rotary knobs that you can twist to adjust the temperature and everything, instead of capacitive touch surfaces, which I think is a much better solution. It still has basically the same powertrain that's in the 17 Civic hatchback. So it's the 1.5 liter turbo with a CVT, which is, the 1.5 turbo is a lovely engine. It's quite powerful, quite fuel efficient. We've been very happy with it over the last almost 5 years now that we've been driving it, and it's still great. The Sport, you get with the Sport Touring, you get I think 6 extra horsepower, so it's up to 180 horsepower now, compared to the 174 that's in the 2017 that we have. Unfortunately, you cannot get I don't think you can get a manual transmission with this one, or maybe you can. The one I have has the CVT, which is, as CVTs go, is not a bad CVT, but if
it's a CVT.
It's still a CVT. It's not as offensive as some of them. It does have some steps in there so that you get some of the more traditional feel of the way a transmission should feel. The Sport Touring you can get with a manual 6-speed manual transmission. The only of the 22 Civics, the ones that don't offer the manual are the base LX or the EXL. Both of the Sport and the Sport Touring models are available with a 6-speed manual. So if you are one of the few remaining Americans that is interested in driving an actual car, like a regular car that's not a Miata, with a manual transmission, this is one of the few options you have left. There's not many others, and I would definitely recommend considering this if that's what you're looking for. Aside from the styling, which as we said is a little less expressive than the previous generation, it's not bad. It's just less interesting. I really like everything else about this car. It drives really well. The ride quality is very good. It has it's not great steering feel, but it does have some steering feedback when you're cornering. So it is very enjoyable to drive. It's quite reasonably quick. It's fast enough for what most anybody is going to need for any kind of normal daily driving. It's roomy. The 2022 model does have about 1.5 inches more wheelbase than the previous generation, and almost all of that has gone into rear seat legroom. So the rear seat legroom was fine in the old one. I can sit in the back without any problem in our 2017, but you have up to an extra 1.5 inches in this new one. So if you're carrying taller passengers on a regular basis, that's definitely something worth considering. The Civic starts. Let's see, where does it start? The one I'm driving is priced at $29,400 MSRP, and then with the delivery charge, it's $30,415. Which, by today's standards, when you consider that the average transaction prices are now well over $40,000, this is quite a reasonably affordable car. It's not hugely expensive, and you can get the base Civic starting at I think just over $20,000, I believe, is what it goes for, and I'll find that in a second. But because cars, nameplates have continued to grow over the years compared to where they were 10, 15, 20 years ago. The Civic today is about as big as, has about as much interior room as full-size cars did, 25 years ago. You can still get smaller cars, not many of them anymore, but you can still get smaller cars. But this is a very roomy car. It's definitely worth consideration. Yeah. So the base Civic sedan starts at $21,900, and so that's at the lower end of what's available in the market today. There are a few others that you can get that are under 20 grand, but not many left. And that's all I've got on the Civic.
What's that? That's it for the Civic? I like
That's
the
it.
Civic. I drove it a couple of weeks back, and I thought it was good. But I do feel like you're right about it. It just doesn't have. There's some of the oomph, the panache. The ooh, look at that cool, fun little car is absent. I'm assuming on purpose. They wanted to tone it down, but I missed that a bit.
I think people got a little too this is too niche with that old design.
They went they did go pretty far last time into the
They went
car, and it was like,
They
wow.
went 2 steps too far, which
Yeah,
is really great for all the enthusiasts, but I think the regular moms
The
and
regular
dads
folks
and
are like,
people
this
who
is
are
too much to take to carpool.
But you can get a manual transmission on this thing for the exact same cost as a CVT.
Why would you not do that? Because you don't know how to drive it. Not you.
But this
not
is your
three of
chance.
us. Other
It's
people.
a
this is your
perfect
chance.
opportunity to learn.
I know. I say that so often.
Honda makes
Honda's-
great transmissions.
Yeah, Honda
Mm-hmm.
makes some of the best manual transmissions you can find. They're very easy to shift. They've always got really good clutch feel. It's a great way to have something a little different.
I agree.
Oh, and
Okay,
one last detail about all the Civics. They all come with the Honda Sensing package now, so they have the full suite of driver assist features, adaptive cruise control, blind spot monitoring. That is actually one big improvement on this one compared to ours. Ours still has the lane watch system on it, which was the camera mounted under the passenger side mirror. That when you put
it's
on
only one.
it's only on the one side, not on the
Only
not
on
the
one
driver's
side.
Yeah.
Only on one side, which was
I don't like this
okay.
when the world goes. You're like on the highway, just changing lanes at 65 miles an hour. Like zoom, 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 zoom. I'm like, I don't need to see that right now. That's too much.
It's such a
I'm
weird
good.
thing because Hyundai did essentially the same thing but much better because it's on both sides and it's so much better.
Yeah.
Huge difference.
But you can't get the Hyundai with the manual transmission. So I'm just
Wah,
throwing
wah.
that. Yeah, can't get the manual.
All right.
Okay. Want me to go next?
Yeah.
I'll go next. Okay. So I was going to talk about this next week, but I'll talk about it this week because I decided that while you were chatting, Sam. So I had the chance to drive for one day. They flew me down to New York, and I had some time with the Lucid Air, which was pretty cool. So they've shipped some of these. They're shipping. They're going to get more are going to be coming, but they started with the most expensive models, which are $169,000. So not the cheapy ones, not the ones us mere mortals will be driving, but it does come down to about
relatively mere mortals.
relatively mere mortals.
More mere than the people that can afford a $170,000, $160,000.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But they're still not going to be cheap.
It's still not going to be cheap. I think it still starts at about 70, just under over 77. So
Yeah.
it is not an inexpensive car, but that's not what they're intending. They're billing this as a luxury car, and they're doing the same thing Tesla is, where they're not going to have dealerships. They have showrooms, and they're opening more of them as time goes on. I met them at the one in the meatpacking district in New York. It's a beautiful showroom. I mean, it has just enough tech stuff so that you can, if you go into one, you can see the tech features of the car. If you want to know about how the battery and stuff works, you can see the car, and then there's, you can customize and build it. And they have this really cute display that shows you all the materials and the colors and all that kind of stuff. So it's a neat showroom. It is neat, and it feels, it has that sort of upscale, I'm buying something cool, not just I'm buying a random commuter car at the local dealership. Like, it feels like what they're trying to get at. I drove the Air Dream Edition, which is their fanciest of fancy pants versions of the Air. But first, I got to say, style-wise, when you see this thing in person, it's a stunning car. It has this very mid-century modern kind of vibe. Even if you look, like I posted some pictures in my Instagram and on Twitter, if you look at the way the word Air is written, it's like so mid-century modern. It's really cool. It's this nice sort of swoopy thing. And that sort of aesthetic, that feel, the way the design is and the colors and the materials, it feels like that when you sit in it. It feels like that when you look at it. So design-wise, it's really beautiful. It is a really pretty car. And I was driving it on the dreariest of, rainy, cold, bleh days in New York. And I took pictures, and people are still saying, like, wow, that looks amazing. I'm like, yeah, with that totally gray, nasty sky and dead trees, and the car still looks beautiful. Like, okay, that's saying something. So driving it, this one has 520 miles of range. The range changes slightly as you go down from Dream Edition to Grand Touring to Pure. I think I got that right. So the highest range is 520 miles of range, which is a lot. That's the kind of thing that you don't really, your car with a gas engine may or may not get that much range, on a gas tank. The thing that makes that cooler, though, 520 miles of range, you can get 300 miles of that back in roughly 20 minutes. So you can charge up pretty quick. So if you want a road trip in this, you could actually do it. And they're teamed up with Electrify America, and you get the first 3 years of charging free. It's not a certain amount. It's just like 3 years, charge all you like, and it's free, which is another cool little incentive. And because it's a new company, you get the full $7,500 federal tax credit. You don't have to worry about anything being staged out. And with how this one is selling, not that it's not selling well, but it's a small volume vehicle. It's not like, it's not a Civic.
Yeah.
So it's going to take some time for them to get to that mark where things are going to start coming down. Their Dream Edition's completely sold out. Although he said they have this huge long waiting list where people are just kind of like, well, maybe one guy will cancel. But the people that ordered this, yeah, right? Exactly. Like, oh, that's cute.
Maybe Phil will say, I don't want it after all.
I know. Phil's like, you know what? I saw this in person now. Change my mind. Give it to the next guy.
That's the problem. If you see it in person, you don't change your mind.
You don't. If you see this in person, okay, because like I'm looking at it on my computer screen right now, and it looks fine. Like, it's fine. Looks okay. Looks fine. Like, okay, it's an EV. I saw it in person and I was like, wow, that looks really good. So it really is one of those vehicles, when you see just images, it doesn't do justice to how good this thing looks in person. And in fact, as we were driving, we went up to this Bear Mountain State Park, which was like an hour outside of the city. And as we were trying to get out of the parking lot, a family was just walking across like families do. And literally the boy is like pointing and looking and stopping in the road. And mom's kind of like, come on. And then mom looks and the husband's like, no, do you see what he's crossing? And then half the parking lot is turning around and looking at the car like, wow. And I'm like, I appreciate it, guys, but I don't want to kill any of you. Can you stare and point from the sidewalk? Even
Clear
in the
out
city.
of my way.
Yeah, and then we passed my favorite thing is we passed a guy in a Tesla, and as we passed the guy in the Tesla, we passed him, and he's just driving along, and then all of a sudden the Tesla comes speeding back up, and I can see the guy looking like, what is that? And I'm like, he's checking out the car. So it was neat to see the reaction. People like it. Little kids like it. Tesla owners like it. Random homeless guy in New York City was like, thumbs up, nice car. I'm like, thanks. I don't even know what to say to that. So style-wise, it has that range. It has that federal tax credit. And there's 3 drive modes. There's Smooth, Swift, and Sprint. And in the Dream Edition, the Smooth and the Swift are only unlocking like half the horsepower in the vehicle. So you're working at like 600 and change for horsepower. If you
only 600?
I know.
600?
I know, right?
What even? How do you even?
Why even?
How do the wheels even turn?
I know, it's amazing, right?
Why would you even leave the house for that?
Why would you even bother getting in the car? So because you do want to bother getting in the car, you push the Sprint button, and it gives you a warning like, be careful. It doesn't say this, but it's basically the warning is, don't be stupid now. We're giving you all the horsepower. That's what the warning is, okay? So you push that button, it gives you your don't be stupid warning, and you have 1,111 horsepower. That is worth leaving the house for. 100% worth getting in the car and leaving the house. You don't even have to push the pedal. I feel like if you breathe a little bit heavy and the air hit that pedal, you're suddenly pushed back in your seat and you're flying. It is aggressive. And what made it so neat was, I don't know, I mean, it's a lot of people don't have a chance to drive a car with high horsepower. Forget the 1011, even like a Hellcat or something that's like a 700, 600. These high horsepower cars, they're really cool. And that sense of being pushed back in your seat is amazing. But depending on the car, if you mash that gas pedal, you have a moment where you fight the steering a little bit. Like it's not like this, you just accelerate and go in a nice straight line. It's like, hold on tight, because you might have a little steer left, little torque steer happening. You're like, This thing, when you mash on that pedal, it just is like, here's all your power, and I will continue going exactly where you have me pointed, the way you had me pointed. It was so controlled and so well-mannered. Other than that, feeling that weight against your chest, which is just a fantastic feeling when you hit that pedal. It's so controlled and so well-mannered. I was very impressed. I liked driving it. It was quiet. We took it... there's that section roads in the meatpacking district that are cobblestone. And when they dropped me off in a GMC Yukon was the car that they had hired to drop me off. And coming over the cobblestones, like, blah, 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 like, okay, we're in the cobblestone section. We drove out on that same section. You barely feel it. And because I had just been so conscious of it in another car, I'm like, wow, this is doing a fantastic job. And even over the really crummy streets that you have there. It's the city. There's potholes everywhere. There's seams in the pavement. There's construction. There's metal pieces covering where there's covers and holes in the ground. It's very well-mannered and very relaxed and very easy to just feel like, okay, I'm in a nice, smooth luxury cruiser. So it does this great balance between, I'm going to put it in sprint mode, get my don't be stupid warnings and have at it, or I'm going to keep it in either smooth or swift. And I'm just going to drive this like this beautiful, elegant, luxurious, smooth, comfortable luxury car. The thing is, you have to be willing to spend luxury car, at least $77,000, or for those who got this Dream Edition, $169K. Does it feel like it's worth it? If I had $169,000 that I was going to spend on a car, this would be on my list because it's that good. And the inside is just... like, I feel like part of spending that much money on a car, like for this, you're looking for the EV, you want one that has that crazy range, that charges really fast. You want that horsepower, or a lot of people do, but you want it to feel like a luxury car. Like, I feel like some EV makers make their cars feel so, like they're so focused on, we're going to be sustainable and clean, and that it's...
Well, one particular EV maker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
And the cleanness is really cost saving.
Right.
Yes.
But that look, it makes them, but there's other EVs out there that are not the EV maker that you're talking about that still, when they go to that, there's a fine line between making your car look very like that Swedish unfussy kind of thing, where there's not a lot of flash and chrome and, and like, even though you use this super expensive textile on your dashboard that was recycled and saved all these, saved many seals or whatever, it looks cheap. Like, you don't want it to look cheap.
Well,
you want your luxury car to look like a luxury car, and this one does.
And granted, most of those other brands are not charging $160,000 for the car either.
That's true. Yeah. But sometimes they look like they should be charging $1.95. Like there's, it's like
you can't call a car luxury and then the interior not live up to luxury. You can just say it's an expensive sedan. You can say, but sometimes people are like, well, it's a luxury car. I'm like, no.
Right. And that's
I think there's a comfort level that comes with luxury. There's an anticipation. There's something that you're expecting, especially after years of Mercedes and BMW and Audi, like building these cars, and you're like, well, this is luxury too. And you're like, yeah, not really.
And I think you expect a certain amount of there has to be a sort of a design aesthetic that you can see. Like, it shouldn't just look like we made a dashboard that fits, we made seats that fit, we made a roof that fits. Like, this has that glass roof and it's very open and it has this, there's only one piece down the middle, and it's only because it goes down to the middle to where they have to have a part mounted to the dash, where the dashboard, where the windshield is. So, but it's this really thin little vein across the top and has a light down the middle that's the ambient lighting. they could have just made it a piece of black and said, well, it's up there and it is what it is. But they paid attention to it. I know that sounds like a stupidly small detail, but that's the kind of things that luxury cars do. They take into account all these random details that sometimes you don't even realize what it is, and you just sit down and you think, this looks and feels so well put together, and that's what this one does.
Yeah, I've talked to the CEO, Peter Rawlinson, I don't know, a bunch of times at this point. And every time it's very much, we're not competing with Tesla, we're competing with the German automakers. We're competing with luxury automakers. And, they're going to be compared with Tesla regardless because, A, it's a sedan, it has long range, so you're going to hit Tesla. Also, Lucid is just populated with former Tesla engineers.
Peter.
Starting with Peter, who was the man who's like, hey, here's the Model S.
Yeah.
Well, they had a guy that was, so I had one of their PR folks that was with me through the ride, because it was just me. It wasn't like an official program, but they had a guy in a following car that was just there in case there was, he's like, not a mechanical failure like the car breaks, but if you get a flat tire, it's not like we have Drive Shop or somebody here to fix that. We want somebody here in case you need anything. And he was following on, he was formerly from Tesla, because I was asking him different things, and he's like, well, I did notice that on the Tesla. I haven't seen it yet on this. So it was interesting. I'm like, is anybody here not been at Tesla? Although the guy that was riding with me was a former Volkswagen and Audi guy. So, but the Germans. Yeah.
The Germans. They're from Tesla or the Germans. That's really the company is either Tesla or the Germans.
Aside from the fact that it's an EV, so you could say they're chasing Tesla, it feels much more like a car that's chasing the Germans. It really, really does. You're like, okay, I get it's an EV, that's the Tesla end of things. But in every other way, this feels like it's a new version of a German car. Even just the way the doors, they try to make it is so open. It feels gigantic in there. The door panels, instead of sort of coming out, Robbie, you probably had this happen in cars, when your legs are long, you'll hit where the handle is. You hit the edge of the door panel because your knees don't have room. These curve way in. So it's almost, unless you're doing the ultimate man spreading as you're driving, I don't think you can hit. Yeah, just all flailed about. But you have all this room, and it's even front to back. So the guy with me, he is 6'4", so he's a tall guy, and he just threw the seat all the way back to be comfortable. When we stopped, I said, sit behind the seat you just tossed all the way back. He sat behind it. He still had room for his knees. 6'4" in front of 6'4", that's pretty impressive.
Yeah. Back in 2017 or 16, whenever it was that they were first showing off the Air, and this was actually at the LA Auto Show before they had really shown it publicly. They were doing some private briefings. I had a briefing with Peter Rawlinson and Derek Jenkins, the head of design there, and at the time, they talked about aiming for Mercedes-Benz. And what they wanted was something that had the luxury of a Mercedes-Benz, the interior roominess of an S-Class, but the exterior footprint of an E-Class. So, the midsize, so it's smaller on the outside, larger on the inside. And I think that they really did. It really feels like they achieved that. When I sat in the thing for the first time, sitting in the back with Peter, it was amazing how much room there is in the back of this thing.
Well, and even in terms of the roominess, they've used every last conceivable space. Nothing. It's well, could we make that space for people? Could we make that space for cargo? Why don't we do that? It kind of feels like they looked at everything well, why do we have these unnecessary things jutting out into the cargo area in the trunk? Get rid of them. We don't need that. So when you open the trunk, normally it's a relatively sort of straight-ish line into the trunk, but it's so wide at the opening. There's these extra little pieces. In fact, on the floor, they open up two little pods to either side. And you could easily fit a golf bag at the very front of that trunk. That's how long it is. And then the floor opens up and there's a huge amount of space under there. And even in the front, when you go up to the front, huge space. You think, wow, that's a huge frunk. It's bigger than you think. Again, there's an underfloor even in the front where you lift it open and there's more space. Good Lord, I feel like this has more space than some crossovers that I've been in. It
probably does.
And it's an impressive. Oh, go ahead.
It's the Honda Fit of luxury sedans. You just have way more space in your. It's a TARDIS.
It's a TARDIS. It's the TARDIS of electric vehicles. Yeah. because as I'm looking, you're sort of almost like you're sort of surprised. It's like, yeah, okay, there's a front. Holy cow, there's more space. Oh, there's more space. Oh, inside there's more space. Oh, it's just, there is an attention to detail in terms of the design of this that makes it really, really an impressive vehicle, impressive car. I liked, in case you can't tell, I liked. Aside from the fact that I will never be able to afford a $169,000 EV. That's the only thing I didn't like.
It'll be cheaper.
No, and they said they literally started with the Dream Edition, and those folks that spent that big money got theirs first. And as they go out through 2022, they'll be getting down to the ones that are more traditional luxury car prices. And
this is what every new automaker does. They start with their premium trim. Tesla's had their Founders series of every new model they brought out, and Fisker's doing the same thing. They've got a launch edition, and even the legacy automakers, are coming out with edition 1 for the Hummer or launch editions for Ford. That they pack everything conceivable in there.
They all do it now. There's always some special launch edition that they come up with that Bronco did it too, right? Wasn't there a launch edition? Like everything. I mean, that's an off-road vehicle. It's like doesn't matter the category. I think it generates buzz too and excitement because people are like, oh, I want one of those. There's only, in this case, 520, or there's only 300, or there's only 1,000.
You're literally putting your best foot forward when you do this.
You are. And it really would you want to put I know these are never going to be a rental car, but would you want to put your rental car special out as the first one customers see? And everyone's like, wow, this is great, great. Right. Like, that's not what you want to do. So
it sounds, I know, Peter and the team would have loved to have had this car on the market a couple of years ago, at least, if not earlier. But it took them quite a while to raise the capital they needed to build their factory and get into production. And from everything I've seen, it looks like they used that extra time that they had available to really refine this car and get everything working right. So that it minimized, the bugs that they had available. And even in the course of 2021, they pushed back the official production launch a few months, as they continued to work out some details in the production system and in the vehicle itself. So, it looks like they used the time to good effect.
Well, and I know they were at least in some cases too, part of there, I'm sure that was the supply chain issues that have affected everyone, because weirdly there was a feature that wasn't on this one, but that is on all of them. So when you open the frunk and then you lift up the underfloor storage thing, it's sort of like an accordion piece. It like bends in half and pushes back to give you the extra little piece, but it wants to spring back at you. Like you kind of have to hold it. And I was like, oh, and he's like, actually, he said, it's not on this one, but the production ones, there's a magnet there, so it holds it in place. So that when you open it, it stays, and then you pull it. And I said, oh, how come it isn't on this one? He said, honestly, it was just supply chain stuff. We couldn't get, this is one we're using for press, we're using for media. We gave the magnet to one of our consumer ones. I'm like, fair.
Yeah.
So, but like they're having, that's a small thing, but you got to imagine there's other, a magnet that was hard to get. Like the weirdest things that cause little delays in production.
Maybe a certain size and certain polarity, certain strength.
Exactly. Apparently that magnet was in high demand.
What's the last thing we need for the car? The magnet.
The magnet. We just need the damn magnet.
I can't believe we don't have that damn magnet yet.
Forget microchips or semiconductors.
Mike's magnets on the phone again. Get him over here. Give me my magnets.
All right. Smartphones have gotten way more expensive over the past decade, and all it takes is one impact on a hard floor to make you wish you had spent a few bucks to put a case on it. Going online without ExpressVPN is like not having a case for your phone, and it only costs a few dollars a month. Nicole, Robbie, and I travel a lot for our work, and we spend a lot of time in hotels, coffee shops, airplanes, and of course the Delta Sky Club. Connecting to the Wi-Fi in any public places with shared Wi-Fi puts your data at risk because bad actors could be intercepting what you send and using it to steal from you. It only takes some cheap hardware to intercept Wi-Fi data, and even a smart preteen can do it. Hackers can make up to $1,000 per victim selling personal information on the dark web. ExpressVPN stops the bad guys by creating a secure, encrypted tunnel between your device and the internet. ExpressVPN uses state-of-the-art encryption that would take a supercomputer up to 1 billion years to crack. I have ExpressVPN on all my devices, including a MacBook Pro, Windows laptops and desktops, and Android and iOS phones and laptops, or tablets. When I want to be secure, I just launch the app, click once to connect, and my data is secure. As I said, I travel a lot for my work, and I have to connect to countless public Wi-Fi networks in many countries. I have ExpressVPN on all my connected devices so that whoever else is on the same network can't see any of my data. That's important because I often have to check banks, credit card accounts, and transmit client data that might be sensitive, as well as filing articles on news that might be under embargo. ExpressVPN protects all of it, and I've been paying for my own account for years. Secure your online data today by visiting expressvpn.com/wheelbearings. That's expressvpn.com/wheelbearings, and you can get an extra 4 months for free. expressvpn.com/wheelbearings.
Between client meetings, managing your business, and everyday tasks, who has time to worry about website hosting? With Kinsta's managed WordPress hosting, you don't have to. They handle the technical stuff, delivering lightning-fast load times, enterprise-grade security, and 24/7 365 human-only support. Simply switching to Kinsta could make your site up to 200% faster. Kinsta's custom dashboard makes managing sites easy, with powerful features designed to save you time and effort. Plus, their free expert-led migrations ensure a smooth transition. Ready to see why Kinsta is trusted by thousands of businesses? Get your first month free at kinsta.com. That's KINSTA.com. Kinsta, simply better hosting.
Mr. Baldwin, what about you? What have you been driving?
I drove the Mini SE electric. Now, it's been out for a while. And someone's like, hey, can you do a review of it? I said, okay. And I've driven it before, and it was right like at the beginning of COVID during lockdown. So I couldn't really, it was hard to be excited about literally anything back then. But now, I mean, it's not that now it's like crazy better, but it's let's just say it's much better. Anyway, so I drove it. I had it for a week, and I absolutely love that car. It is I don't want to call it like a compliance car, because a lot of companies are like, oh, here's a car with 100-ish miles of range. It's an EV based on a gas platform. And that's literally what this is. But it's everything that you would expect from a Mini that happens to be electric. It's kind of like the 500e, where the Fiat 500e, where the Fiat 500e was the best Fiat 500.
It was.
Yeah,
it really was.
Like, you got it and you're like, oh my God, why did they even make the other one? And they're like, oh, because they lose money every time they build it.
Right.
But the Mini SE, I absolutely adored it. It's fun. It's one of the funnest EVs you can buy, and it really gives me. It really. I did an interview with Mini North America at the LA Auto Show, and they're like, "Yeah, we are going all in on EVs because it really fits, and I think it really fits with the brand. You have this very go-karty feel. You get this instant torque that you're not going to get with the regular Mini unless you get the John Cooper Works. You throw a bunch of money at it." And I've autocrossed this vehicle before.
How was that?
It was really fun. It was, everything about this is just like fun performance, and it's exactly what a Mini should be. And and it's just happens to be electric, and it's, I guess, kind of a compliance car. I don't. It's such a weird thing because, I mean, Mini's not going to call it a compliance car. And when you drive it, it doesn't feel like a compliance car. It doesn't feel like you're just sort of like, well, here you go. It's
in some ways, I think it's a compliance car because, it's a you could call it a compliance car because it's a conversion of an ICE. But, BMW, they're, Minis are lumped in with the rest of the BMW lineup in terms of how many EVs, or plugins they have to sell every year. And, I think that they, from on the BMW brand side of the house, I think they sell enough plugins, between the plug-in hybrid, 3, 5, 7, X5, and so on, as well as the i3, and now, the i4 and the iX coming. I don't think they actually need the Mini SE to be compliant.
No.
Exactly.
But, I think they felt that they wanted an electric, battery electric Mini. And I think there have actually been people asking for this going back to when they did the original Mini E, in
back in the
2008,
day.
which was, that was a pilot program before they started building EVs. They built this test fleet of 500 and some electric minis that they loaned out to consumers for a couple of years to better understand how people use EVs. And that ultimately led to the i3.
Yeah. It's such a fun car. I can't, I don't know if it's it only has, Mini says it has 114 miles of range, which is not a lot. My test, I got to 120 during my test. I think, Mini and other automakers, especially the Germans, have been very under sort of reporting what their range numbers are. But it's, I live in the East Bay, and the East Bay has back roads and twisties and turnies, but they are very rough. They haven't been up, the upkeep isn't that great, as opposed to Marin, where I also go and drive, where the roads are very nice and smooth. And, you have a lot more tourists, so you want a nice, smooth road. And some of the best roads in America over there in Marin. So I drive these back roads, and I'll drive Marin. And on these back roads, I've had Aston Martin Vantages just having problems. There's very few cars that can handle these corners without just, you feel like you're just going to get bounced off the road. I think the STI did really well because that's essentially what that car is built for. And this Mini did really, really well on these very rough roads. It's a stiff ride, but it is a joy to be behind the wheel. It actually has a stick for the transmission, which I'm always a big fan of. So push buttons or whatever weird thing people are coming up with now to shift their vehicles.
I'm with you on that. I would love to just be able to get into a vehicle and not have to think for a half a second, wait a minute, how do I get myself out of the driveway? It is the most disconcerting. I know how to drive cars. I do this for a living. And the number of times I sit down, it's hold on, where is it?
Yeah. They change controls just for the sake of change.
To mess you up. Some engineer's ha, gotcha. Okay, fine.
The push button, we have that on our Kona electric, and every time I get in, I'm hold on. And we've had it for 4 or 5 months at this
and
point.
You're
every
still
time
thrown, right?
Hold on. Let me push the stupid button. Yeah, that's the big thing I don't like about the Kona. But no, the Mini is, if you're looking for a fun EV that you're not, it's not going to be a road trip EV. It's only, it can only charge at 50 kilowatts. It's got a range of 120 miles. If you want to do a road trip on it, it's going to take a while. But if you need to get around town, I used it for my errands. I drove over, outside the East Bay. I drove into the city. I just drove it around like I would any of my cars, and it was fine. It wasn't, there's still that little I only got 20 miles left. I'm well, we'll see what happens. You really do become well, here we go. And what's really interesting is it starts at $29,900, so about $30,000, but you still get the federal tax credit on it, plus any local or state credits you can get to it. So you can bring that down to 23, 22, and so now you're getting a really fun Mini for $22,000,
which is probably cheaper than any of the gas Minis.
I know, this is probably better than you do a gas Mini.
Yeah, which is and it's just a fun little car. If you're looking for a sort of you want an EV, you want something that's fun, and it's a second car. All Minis are second cars. Mini's very upfront about that. Our cars are typically second cars. Then this is something you should get into. And I feel like I'm not, this car's been out for a little while, so it's not like this is anything new. But I think it's just reiterating just how much fun this is. And after driving the i4 and the iX this year, and talking to Mini at the LA Auto Show, I'm really excited of where Mini is going when it comes to EVs. When we start getting proper purpose built EVs from Mini, I think it's on brand, and B, it's going to sort of give it a little revitalization, because I think people are going to be oh, this is the fun that I'm missing. And we're going to get an EV Mini convertible. I made them.
You single-handedly made that happen?
I didn't make it happen, but I just kept asking somebody until finally they said, yes, we're going to have an EV Mini convertible. And they also talked about maybe having a smaller Mini that'll be an EV, a smaller vehicle. So I got them so maybe we'll have a tiny little,
an actual mini?
A mini that's an electric, which is, if you've ever driven it doesn't even have to be the original styling. I mean, you could have got these back in the 90s in Europe. One of those tiny minis, those actual minis. Those are so much fun to drive, even if it takes you a couple minutes like me to get in and out of because you're tall. Like once you're in, you're like,
up to get in and out.
Yeah, because the steering wheel is more like a bus, so it's not like in my way. I can shift gears and left-hand drive or right-hand drive. Oh, it's outstanding. Anyway, 2022 hardtop, weird. Sure, compliance vehicle, but probably the funnest compliance vehicle out there that you can still get. The Golf E was a great vehicle. Also, one of those vehicles that was, essentially a compliance vehicle that just happened to be awesome.
So, okay, right now we've got two roughly 100-mile EVs that are in that low $30,000 price range. Mini, Mazda MX-30.
Mini. None
of us were particularly enthusiastic about the MX-30. Why are you so much more enthusiastic about the Mini versus the MX-30?
The Mini delivers on that Mini promise. I think that's where you really have to deliver on the promise that you're making to your customers as an automotive brand. If Mercedes came out with a S-Class that just felt like trash on the inside, it doesn't matter how much range it had. People are going to be like, I think Mini, this delivers on a promise, and it's actually got better specs than that. It's been out a while. You get it. It's one of those cars that it exudes joy, and that's what the Mini has. And Mini's been making bigger and bigger vehicles. We had a Countryman for a while, my wife and I, and it was okay. It was sort of like she wanted a Mini, I wanted something with all-wheel drive so I could go snowboarding. And so we got the Countryman, and it's like sort of the least mini. It didn't have any low-end torque. It had the same engine, I think, as the S, but a larger. It was lugging around a lot of weight, and it was fine. This goes back to like when the Minis were first reintroduced, and you're like, oh, this is a fun car to drive around, and it's sort of the antithesis of a lot of other stuff that's on the road. And when you drive it, you're like, oh, I get it now, and that's where you're getting with this. And
I think that's really well put. Mini, that's part of I think the problem with the MX-30. It doesn't live up to the expectation of Mazda, like that sort of fun, driver's car. Is it a perfectly fine little 100-mile range EV? Sure. But does it feel like wow, this is a Mazda 100 mile range EV that feels like a Mazda? You're like,
I feel like they would have done better if they'd done a Mazda 3 wagon with like a little bit more, or even a Miata. I don't know what if they had done like a special Miata. We're only going to make 1,000 of them. They only get 120 110 miles of range. Oh my gosh,
if they'd made it a Miata, people would have lost their minds.
Exactly, they would have lost their minds. I think it was a slight misstep from Mazda. And again, to me, it's not a sprint right now when it comes to EVs. I think you don't want to be too far behind, but as long as you're doing something, that's good, because every something you do, you're learning as an automaker to do the correct thing that's correct for your brand and for the people who buy your vehicles.
Agree.
All right. Well, we're recording this on New Year's Eve, but this show actually isn't going to come out until next Wednesday, January 5th, which is in the middle of what should be CES. None of us, I don't think you're going, are you, Robbie?
No.
None of us are going to Vegas in person at this point.
But I'm only just not going because I have other plans that happen to overlap. Otherwise, I have to say I would be there. I would still go.
I was going to go. I canceled my plans this past week, and I've been rescheduling meetings.
You did?
Oh, yeah. I decided it was just simply not worth the risk to both to myself and to my wife when I come home. And so a lot of companies that were going to be there have also canceled their plans, including General Motors. Interestingly enough, at least as of yesterday, when I spoke to Stellantis, they were still planning to be there. Although they, during that conversation, it was kind of hedging a little bit. There's still a possibility that they might stay home. But a lot of manufacturers are saying have decided, nope, we're not sending people there. And I think that's wise. Under the current conditions, it's just with so many people, even with the precautions that the Consumer Technology Association is putting in place, there's still a huge amount of risk to people. So that doesn't mean there's not news coming out of CES. And actually, early last week, just before Christmas, I went to a background briefing in Warren, Michigan, with General Motors, and this was 2 days before they announced that their in-person keynote that Mary Barra was going to do was canceled and was going to be virtual only. Got a chance to see the new Chevy Silverado EV, which it's a combination of a lot of the hardware from the GMC Hummer and the old Chevy Avalanche. And as we're recording this, I'm the only one of the three of us that has actually seen this thing in person.
Did you see the inside, Sam?
I did see the inside.
Is it actually better than the other one?
Oh, it is so much better.
Because the current Silverado is so like... bleh.
Yeah, it is. It is much better.
Really?
Yeah, it is. It is way better.
I know by the time this comes out, everyone will have seen it, but I'm sitting here being skeptical. Like, come on, Chevy, step it up with that interior.
Yeah, I mean, aside from the Silverado nameplate on it, this thing, unlike the F-150 Lightning, actually shares almost nothing with a gas Silverado, including the interior. No body work.
Wow.
When I say Chevy Avalanche, the Avalanche was the pickup truck that Chevrolet launched almost 20 years ago now. That was basically a Suburban with the back cut away to give it a pickup bed in the back, and that's kind of what they've done here. They've used the opportunity because they have a dedicated truck EV platform from the Hummer, and it doesn't share any mounting points. When Ford did the F-150 Lightning, part of the constraints was in order to keep the costs under control and make this thing affordable, they used most of the upper body structure of the standard F-150. So the mounting points for the frame still had to be the same as for the gas truck, and then they, it is a dedicated frame, but it still has the same mounting points. So that constrained them somewhat in terms of how much battery they could put in the thing. And GM didn't have any of those constraints. So they have an all-new body for the Silverado EV that, like the Avalanche, it doesn't have the separate pickup bed. It's all, when you look at it, it's all one piece all the way down the side, more like a Honda Ridgeline, than a Silverado. And the styling is different. It's updated styling. It's I think it's quite an attractive truck. More so than the current gas Silverados. It's still truck shaped. It's not shaped. It's not shaped like a flying stainless steel doorstop. So
who would do that?
It has that the sort of hood area at the front, but it's got a frunk in there, and like the F-150, when you open it up, and also the Hummer for that matter, when you open it up, what would have been the grill area goes with the hood now. It looks, they haven't given all the specs on this thing yet as we record this. It looks like the frunk is a little bit smaller than on the F-150, but not by a huge amount. One advantage they do have is because they've gone to this one-piece design. When you have a separate cab and bed, there's inherently some space that's taken up by the back wall of the cab and the front wall of the bed, and within a given length, that's going to limit how long the bed can be. So on the F-150, as with most crew cab full-size pickups, it's a 5.5 foot bed. On the Silverado EV, because they've eliminated that part of it, you now have a 5 foot 11 inch bed, so it's almost a half a foot longer.
Oh, burn!
But like the Avalanche, it also has the midgate. Remember the midgate on the Avalanche? So you can fold down the back seats, and then you can fold that down. And so now you can fit 9 feet with the tailgate up, up to the back of the front seats. You have 9 feet of length in there to put stuff in, and
like a little pass-through.
This thing also has the multi-flex tailgate thing that came out on the current generation Sierra a couple of years ago. So you have the Swiss Army knife tailgate. So with the tailgate down and the little stop thing up there, you can have up to 11 feet from that stop to the back of the front seats. So you can take really long items in here.
Big stuff.
This is a Home Depot machine, is what you're saying.
Because
sometimes
it is. Think of all the mulch you can put in there.
So much mulch and lumber. Because sometimes I'm like, oh, I got a truck this week. What should I get? I guess sometimes I'll just go buy lumber for things I'm not going to do for like 6 to 8 months.
I don't really buy stuff. The week I have a truck, it's like, what do I have in the house that I should be taking to the dump? That's my week.
Yeah, I got to do truck things with this.
What do I have to get rid of?
Dump run.
And what am I going to need in the next couple of months until I get another truck?
Yeah, exactly. But 11 feet, like with the pass-through. And
that's huge.
That's pretty nice.
Yeah, it's like 10 feet, 10 inches, I think. But, almost 11 feet. So there's that. That's great. The interior, to your question, Nicole,
yes.
is at least on the one we saw, is really, really nice.
Okay.
So initially, there's going to be 2 trim levels of this thing. There's going to be the work truck, like the F-150 Lightning Pro, and the RST, which is the high-end, loaded with every conceivable option.
All the things.
In the RST, it's got a 17-inch center touchscreen, 11-inch instrument cluster display. Lots of storage space in there because it's an electric vehicle. On the work truck, the center touchscreen is only 11 inches and then 8 inches for the cluster display. Just a mere 11 inches for the center display.
so weedy and tiny. Why bother again?
Okay,
right?
What I'm going to keep on. I tell you, like I'm going to start harping on this for the rest of my life now. Anything above like 8 to 9 inches, anything bigger than that is just like, all right, fine. Now you're just showing off.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's just okay. I guess I could watch a movie on this, like a widescreen Panavision movie at some point.
Yeah, while you're waiting for it to charge.
CinemaScope.
Yeah.
All right,
it makes perfect sense.
Let's watch Lawrence of Arabia again.
Yeah. And the initial versions are only coming with the same 200 kilowatt hour battery that's in the Hummer.
Oof.
And the work truck is going to launch in the spring of 2023. So a full year behind the F-150 Lightning availability. The F-150 Lightning is coming out this spring 2022. The work truck is launching the spring of next year. And then the RST is coming out 6 months after that in the fall of 2023. So 18 months after the F-150 hits the streets. They're not talking about the price of the initial work truck. But the RST, because what they're doing is the work truck they're selling through GM fleet operations, and they're dealing directly with fleets. So you can't just go to a regular dealer and order one of those. You order it through fleet operations. And they're not saying what the price of that one's going to be. The RST, loaded with the Edition 1 or whatever terminology they're using, RST, $105,000.
Oh,
and
gosh.
Both of them are going to have a range over 400 miles. 10,000 pound towing capability, but only 1,300 pound payload, which is considerably, even though it's got a lot more space in the bed, you got to put light stuff in there. So mulch, okay. Filling it up with bags of concrete, not so much. Whereas the Lightning is going to have 2,000 pound payload capability. So
that's a pretty big difference.
Yeah, they will. In 2024, a few months after they do the RSTs, then they will start launching other trim levels with smaller batteries, and there at some point will be a $40,000 work truck version with an as yet undisclosed battery size
for the regulars.
That'll probably be somewhere comparable to the $40,000 Lightning, somewhere in the 220 to 240 mile range. The the RST, actually both of those initial versions, because they've got that dual layer battery pack, they will charge at 350 kilowatts, and you can add, I think it was at 60 miles of range in 5 minutes, something like that, on a 350 kilowatt charger, which is quite impressive. But I think, considering that GM has been working on this Ultium stuff, they first announced this in late 2017. So that's over 4 years ago now. And they've been harping on how fast they were able to turn around the Hummer. They did that program in only 2 years from the time they gave it the green light.
And the Bolt, they were
production.
Remember the Bolt? They were just like, look what we made in like no time at all. And then nothing else happened for a long time.
And Ford was just quietly working away. And now it's going to take so long to get this thing into production. It's going to be a year and a half, till you get a consumer version of the Silverado EV that is going to be at least $15,000 more expensive than the most expensive version of the Lightning. Yes, it will have more range. The Lightning will be about 300 miles of range versus 400 for the Silverado RST. But it just seems to me like this should have been one of the things they did first.
Seems like
this took so long. It is. It's the 2024 Chevy Silverado EV. This is really way ahead of when we're going to see any of these.
There's going to be like 5 Rivians out by then.
Yeah,
and maybe a Cybertruck.
Some Rivians, some Fiskers, a whole bunch of Lucids. Yeah. Because it's tons of other EVs are going to be. I mean, maybe not even. It just seems like that.
The Ultium, and I think we're all having the same sort of like questions that you just.
We're all confused. It's like there's someone behind the scenes who could tell us unofficially, like, the reason this is taking so long, guys, is like there has to be a reason. It seems like a weird decision. I'm sure there is a decision that somebody that knows far more about the situation than we do has said, well, this is why we did it that way. It's just completely hidden to us.
Are they concerned that it's going to cannibalize Hummer EV sales? Because I think those are two completely different markets.
I feel like they're two totally different.
No, it's not.
You're not buying a Hummer EV as a work truck.
It's not going to cannibalize the Hummer. But I don't know why it's taking them so long to get these, especially, they're converting so many factories. Did they address anything about,
did they have that in their spiel at all, Sam, as to why the timing? They didn't address it at all.
No. Another notable thing that they declined to address was I asked them the question, how much is this thing going to weigh? Because the Hummer notably weighs 9,000 pounds. And they said, we're not ready to talk about that yet. And I said, well, let me ask the question a little different way. Will this at least be a light-duty truck? And they declined to answer that question. Which tells me that this is probably not going to be a light-duty truck. This thing is probably going to weigh somewhere at curb weight somewhere between 7,500 and 8,000 pounds, maybe more.
I mean, they're all kind of heavy, but still. GM's been like, we have the Ultium, we have Ultium, and we're like, okay, cool, you're going to be moving quicker than a lot of other people. And then you watch them, and you're like, what is happening over there? It's like, we have this great thing. We'll get to it.
Yeah,
we'll get to it. We're going to lead the.
They're talking a good game.
Yeah,
they are talking a good game. Even how they're releasing this, though, like, I guess, well, like you were saying, they released the fancy pants version of things first, right? You got that RST, but then along with the work truck. But that feels a little odd. Just like, we're going to do the fanciest of our truck, like, because people want trucks to get stuff done, and then the work, like, this feels weird. The whole strategy feels weird. I don't get it. I'm not a marketing person, clearly. I don't get the strategy at all.
Yeah.
But the RST does have 24-inch wheels.
Who cares?
What is this? I love the GM estimated in wide open watts. Wow mode.
That's like WTF.
Wow.
Yeah, that's the mode they have on the Hummer as well. So if you want to do the 1,000 horsepower acceleration on the Hummer, you have to put it in wide open watts.
All I can think of when I see
the Hummer is Watts to Freedom.
Was it Watts to Freedom?
It's Watts to Freedom.
Oh, okay. Oh, so
I wrote a whole article.
WTF?
Same thing.
It is Watts to Freedom. It ended up being. I did a roundup when I was at Car and Driver, and I'm like, "What's the Freedom happened in 2020 or whatever?" And I was very happy that headline made it through to the magazine. Because I was just like,
very good. I all I can think of when I see wow is that Schoolhouse Rock with the exclamation one. Remember Schoolhouse Rock, anyone?
Oh, yeah.
And there's a girl that goes, wow. And it shows wow on the screen. That's all I can think of when I see that.
Yeah, now so for the work truck, it's going to have 510 horsepower, 615 foot-pounds of torque. Both of them are two motor. They declined to be specific. They declined to answer the question of whether there'll be a three motor version. But at some point there may well be a three motor version like you have on the Hummer.
Yeah.
On the RST, it's the same two motors, but they've got this wide open watts mode. So in normal driving, it's 500 and some horsepower. And then in wide open watts mode, it goes up to 664 and 780 foot-pounds of torque. Oh, and it does have four-wheel steering, the same four-wheel steering mechanism that's on the Hummer.
Oh, that little crabby crawl kind of thing.
But they're not doing the crab walk mode in the Chevys. Only the Hummer gets the crab walk mode. So they're using it, for tighter turning circles and better stability on the highway.
You know what? When I go to the hardware store, which I feel like is all the time for some reason, every time
You're a homeowner. That's why.
Exactly.
Four-wheel steering is the greatest thing. I drove that EQS around for like a week and a half with its 10 degrees of rear steering. And after that, I'm just like, I don't know why cars even made without four-wheel steering anymore. Why even bother? Anything that's like a large sedan or bigger should have four-wheel steering as far as I'm concerned. And even if it doesn't have crab walk, which I'm like, yeah, fine, whatever. The fact that it has that is pretty sweet. And it's, again, and I keep saying, well, it's not a race. It's not a sprint, it's a marathon. So, when these things come out, they come out. At the same time, you can't just tell us you have Ultium for years and then just sort of like plugging along. Meanwhile, Hyundai's over here in Korea just like spitting EVs out left and right.
Yep. Yeah, they're gonna have three of them. Three more on the market by spring with the Ioniq, the Kia EV6, and the Genesis GV60, and more coming later in the year. But by next spring we should also have the Cadillac Lyriq as well. So there's that.
I love the Lyriq. Which is really inexpensive.
Yeah, surprisingly so. It's only $60,000.
Yeah, I don't understand. Okay, GM, you do you. We'll see how. We'll give.
He's like, throw your hands in the air. I don't even. We'll see what happens.
Okay, fine.
One more thing the Silverado EV does have is they've copied Ford's Pro Power on Board system. So you get, and they've gone just slightly higher. They got 10.2 kilowatts and 10 outlets instead of 9.6 on the Ford. So you get 10.2 kilowatts of power from 10 outlets, including a 240 volt outlet. And one thing they did do differently from Ford is on the Ford trucks, the outlets in the bed are only on the driver's side, on the left hand side, and GM has split them so there's some on each side of the bed.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Okay, that's like
10.2 is a lot. Also, a 240 volt, that's pretty. You can just charge, your other cars with it. 10.2. 10.2 is more than my house. No, wait, what's my house doing right now? Yeah, I think it's more than what my house is putting out to our Kona. So you could charge my Kona. I mean, it's not a good idea, but you could do it.
Well, I mean, Ford
just
this past week, Ford did put out a press release, showing that you can charge an EV from either from the F-150 Lightning or from the hybrid, from the Power Boost hybrid. If you have the 7.2 kilowatt output, you can plug in a charging cable and recharge your friend's EV from it. And GM isn't saying that they'll. Or GM did say that it can do that. They won't have the Pro Power backup system, house backup system, so you won't be able to plug in your whole house to the
charge your house.
You can also do it with the Hyundai Ioniq, which is on the market now. Just saying. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. Although with the Ioniq, you only get 1.8 kilowatts out, so it's like
it'll take a while.
Charging from a 120 volt outlet.
It's
It'll take a while
if you got time.
Yeah.
If you got some time, you can.
Yeah.
And
it's there.
It's here.
On sale.
It's on sale. You could just drive it around.
You could.
Yeah. There's actually customers
that
have received their Ioniq 5s already.
Yeah. There's like three people.
Real people. Mm-hmm.
5 people, 10 people, I don't know, not a lot, but at least it's it's that end of year.
A number greater than 0 of people.
Number greater than
one.
0, like people like they've gotten their Rivians, their Hummer EVs, and the Ioniq 5s.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
a number greater than 0 in all 3 of those vehicles.
Mm-hmm.
With the Rivians, I think they've delivered about 600 so far. Almost all of them to employees.
Still, it's 600 that have actually made it out the door.
I should have talked about the Rivian.
Oh, we can still talk about that. We're talking about electric trucks.
Yeah, no, I drove the Rivian. That thing is dope. I had it for a few days. I took it to Hollister in the rain and the mud, and a lot of people stared. And it is such a really when you think about everything that's working against a company like that is like A, they're a new company. B, it's a new car. So so there's a lot of things you're expecting. And you kind of get the benefit of the doubt, I think. And Tesla got the benefit of the doubt for years. And then at some point, they're like, okay, you're building hundreds of thousands of cars. You don't get the benefit of the doubt anymore. You have to build quality cars. You need to be building Toyota quality, at least Toyota in the 90s quality cars. You can't be building,
Not
80s,
now, Toyota, not that far. But
yeah, you can't be building 80s GM quality cars. You need to be building at least Toyota 90s quality. It felt really, really well built. It is, it was a really fun car, and I think that's gonna when I look at the Silverado and what it is, it's the I haven't seen it, but if it's essentially the Avalanche, ooh, that's a tough, because if they're also going for that sort of non-work truck person, I mean the Rivian's there. It's there. It's 314 miles, or you pay $10,000 for an extra 86 miles to get 400 miles.
But that's actually not going to be coming until 2023. Yeah.
But 314 miles. I mean, we drove the Hollister. We stopped on the way so we would have a lot of charge to drive around. The Hollister is an off-road park. I'm sorry, I didn't. In Northern California, we drove it around, but we still had so much energy, and we were going to stop on the way back. But we're like, hey, it's raining and we're going to be hitting traffic. Let's just go back. And we went all the way back. No big deal. And it's about 2 hours from my house. So it's 100 and something miles. And it was whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a tough, whew. That's going to be tough for the Silverado if it's not.
All right. So another new EV that is being revealed during CES is the Chrysler Airflow concept, which is actually only kind of new, because in 2020, the last time that everybody showed up to CES in person, the company that was then known as Fiat Chrysler Automobiles on their stand had something called the Chrysler Vision Airflow, which was not a full vehicle concept. It just showed you had the silhouette of something new that they had not previously built, a crossover-ish type of vehicle. And that concept was designed to focus on the interior. And it had all kinds of interesting interior stuff, like a passenger side video screen and big center touch screens, and a lot of stuff that has since appeared in new Jeeps this year, or in 2021. And the shape of that body buck, which had no sides on it, it was a non-functional thing. The shape of that the Vision Airflow concept has now been completed into a complete working vehicle, and we actually saw this thing teased a couple of times during 2021 during virtual events that Stellantis did. Their EV Day event in June or July, and then in the fall when they did their AI Day event, it showed up in there, and they never talked about it. It was just kind of there in the background, and you saw it hanging around.
Shadows.
But it wasn't even in shadows. I mean, it was right out in the open. They just never really
didn't say anything.
They never said Chrysler or Airflow or really said anything about it.
It's like a horror movie where the bad guy's in the background. You don't notice till like, oh wait, there's a bad guy.
He's been there the whole time.
It was Chekhov's crossover.
Yeah.
So anyway, what we have now is more details on the actual Chrysler Airflow, which is going to be coming as a production model for Chrysler in a couple of years. And believe it or not, apparently the Chrysler brand actually has a future. I spoke, as we recorded this yesterday, I spoke yesterday with Chris Feuell. She is the CEO of the Chrysler brand for Stellantis. And right now, as we speak, Chrysler has exactly 2 models in its lineup. The 300, which has been around for about 100 years. I think it was the original Chrysler, if I'm not mistaken. And the Pacifica minivan. And, the 300 is still a great car, but it is a little old. And after this segment, I will insert the interview I did with Chris. But she said that, there is a future for the Chrysler brand. It's getting more new models. By 2028, the brand's going to be all electric. No more internal combustion. The Airflow, a production version of the Airflow, should be arriving by no later than 2025. Maybe possibly a little earlier than that. But there is more stuff coming even before then to the Chrysler brand. So there will be new models added to the Chrysler lineup in the next few years. In addition,
this comes in 2025, but there's going to be new stuff between 2022 and 2025. They have on top.
Yes.
It's EV or electrified in some way.
They wouldn't get into any details, but
future product can't comment. Blah blah.
Exactly.
Blah. Okay.
The usual. But the Airflow, this is it's a crossover EV concept. It's built on the Stella Large EV platform that they talked about. They talked about 4 EV platforms for Stellantis: Stella Small, Medium, and Large, and the truck platform. And this is on Stella Large. She said it's they haven't given specifics of the dimensions, but she said it's a DE class vehicle, and looking at the photos, and people in the photos for scale, assuming that these are not either giants or dwarves, it looks like it's close to the same size as a Mustang Mach-E or a Tesla Model Y. What do you think about it?
I think it looks good. And I say this in the best way possible. It's the most un-Chrysler looking Chrysler I've seen in ages, and that's a good thing. Like, it really looks sharp. I think the exterior looks sharp. The inside shots that they have here, the abundance of screens because of that really high-tech feel, but it also looks very open. It looks like they've done a neat job of designing something that makes use of all the space in the car and looks forward-thinking and futuristic rather than like just holding on to old design ideas. It looks completely different for Chrysler. I think it's good.
Yeah, I really dig it. I think it looks nice. I think it's along the same design vein as the EV6 and the Mustang Mach-E. But no, I you know what? I'm a fan of both of those vehicles. So I think this is going to do really well for them. I wish it was going to be out sooner.
I know, 2025 is so far away.
So far.
It's 3 years.
Yeah,
I'd even be around by then.
2025 model year or calendar year.
Well, maybe 2024.
Yeah,
maybe late 2023.
Yeah,
which is
if we get lucky.
If we make it that far.
I think 24 is more likely. Maybe mid 24.
But I think it looks nice. It looks like a production vehicle. It looks like something you would want to, if you walked into the dealership, you're like, oh, what's that? And I think a lot of people like these sort of, I guess, crossover small SUVs, essentially raised hatchbacks at this point, that everyone is building. And I, for one, actually like these little raised hatchbacks as a fan of hatchbacks. I'm like, you know what? We're fine.
Yeah,
fine. You want something that's called this? Sure. I just wish the seating would let me see a little bit lower. That's always my thing.
You don't like the upright seating in these? You like to be lower?
They're always so high, and I always feel like it could go like another inch or so lower. But everyone
says the giant. No,
I know that's true. So as the giant of the group, Hulk smash, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, what they did reveal about the Airflow, it's expected to have about a 350 to 400 mile range. So right in the ballpark of what is going to be the industry standard, I think, for vehicles in this class. 2 motors with about 400 horsepower combined between them. So it's a pretty standard layout. There's nothing really earth-shattering about all this. The whole infotainment.
What are you talking about? There's a fancy, crystallized start-stop button that's super fancy and forward. Did you see it?
Well, this is the concept. Who knows what's going to make it in production? Although Volvo does have that crystal shifter.
Don't even tell me you're not going to have a fancy crystal button. You have a whole image devoted to this stupid button, Chrysler. There had best be a crystal button when this thing comes out.
Well, then you have Volvo, it has crystal, and now the iX has crystal as well.
Yeah,
and the iX.
What's
fun is that
crystal.
when the light hits those things, it hits you right in the eye, and you got a cool rainbow shooting through your iris.
I haven't had that problem. Maybe it's again the Hulk-sized height. Maybe for everybody else, it just goes right over our heads.
Might have. I had it with the iX when I was driving it around. I had little things hitting me in the eye. It was like Dark Side of the Moon issue.
Never a problem I've experienced with a crystal shifter or anything, but now I'm going to be super hyper aware of that if it ever happens.
Oh God, my eyes.
That's what Robbie was talking about.
They also say that this will feature what they're calling Stella Brain, which is their new electronic architecture that'll allow over-the-air updates for everything. So it'll have you'll be able to get new features that you can pay for over time, and features or things that they fix that you don't have to go back to the dealer for an update. And then also the Stella Cockpit, which is the infotainment interior system that they're developing through their joint venture with Foxconn. So all that stuff is going to be in this as well as other vehicles that share this platform. So I think it's good to hear that they are finally paying some attention to the Chrysler brand, I think it's a good looking vehicle, and hopefully it turns out to be as good a vehicle in reality as it seems to be, at least in these images.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to come out with that Pacifica EV, and people are going to lose their minds.
Yes, they are.
They're going to be like, "Oh, what?"
I love that Pacifica.
Pacifica's great.
It wouldn't surprise me if that's something they do before this thing shows up. Is
one of the cars that electrifies before this? Oh my gosh, people really would go nuts. Can you imagine if they had a fully EV Pacifica? Oh, do that. I'd forgive the crystal shift knob, Chrysler, if you can give us a fully EV Pacifica.
Fully EV Pacifica.
Yeah.
They'll just have to make they have to make cutouts in the battery so you can still do stow and go.
Oh yeah, what would you do with it? You'd lose a stow and go, wouldn't you?
You'd have to do
could there be some super creative engineering there or something?
First hybrid didn't have stow and go, and the backs.
The middle row they lost the middle row because the battery went into the same cavity where the seats used to go.
Where the seats would go. Yeah. I remember we did a video where I had to pick them because you could take them out, and we did a whole video of me carrying these giant stabby things out, and we're like, well, I mean, you can do it, but don't.
Yeah, you could if you wanted to, but don't. Don't plan that.
Hey everybody, it's Sam. A few days before Stellantis showed off the new Chrysler Airflow concept at CES 2022, I had a chance to sit down and chat briefly with Chris Feuell. She is the CEO of the Chrysler brand for North America, and we talked a bit about what's going on with Chrysler, whether the brand is going to survive, and where she sees it going in the coming years. Enjoy. Talking today with Chris Feuell, the CEO of the Chrysler brand for Stellantis. Chrysler's making some news this week at CES with a new concept vehicle, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But before we get into that, Chris, I want to talk with you a little bit about the Chrysler brand first, and kind of where that brand stands. Obviously it was the origin of what was Chrysler, the Chrysler Corporation a long time ago. And the brand has kind of shrunk a little bit over the last decade or two, down to 2 models. What is the status of the Chrysler brand, and where is the Chrysler brand going?
Great question, Sam. And as you pointed to, Chrysler has been an iconic brand for almost 100 years now. It was a company and has since evolved to a portfolio of products, which unfortunately over the course of the last 10 years is now only 2 products. We're at the forefront of an enormous revitalization of the brand, really transforming the product line, what we stand for in terms of clean mobility and connected solutions to really improve that driving and ownership experience. But also respecting the fact that Chrysler's heritage has been really rooted in delivering breakthrough innovation for the mainstream market and also creating new segments that really fill unmet needs. And if you think about Chrysler's heritage and the time with the airflow, the original airflow concept was first introduced in 1934 as a unibody constructed vehicle with a lot of advanced technologies like automatic transmission and push button start. And so if you think about what that represented back in the 30s and what we're showing at CES with the new airflow in terms of our battery electric technology and all of the new Stellantis connected technologies like Stella Brain with artificial intelligence, smart cockpit, which really enhances the driver and passenger experiences, seamlessly connecting their personal digital life with their mobile digital life. And then Stella Auto Drive with level 3 autonomous driving capability, all brought together in one vehicle, is just really exciting. And it's really relevant to be able to showcase the airflow concept at CES, which is such a technology forward event.
So clean mobility, connected solutions, that's what we're seeing really across most of the industry. I think everybody's moving in that direction. And what is beyond that, as you mentioned, the Chrysler brand, going back to its origins when Walter Chrysler started it, over its history has always had a history of doing some really unique innovations. What is it about the brand what is the brand going to stand for going forward that distinguishes it from other companies in the industry?
What will distinguish Chrysler from other brands in the industry is the integration of clean mobility, and by 2028 being a full battery electric portfolio, and incorporating that with the seamless connected technology that really improve the driving and the passenger experience within the vehicle. And then leveraging the technology of Stella Brain to incorporate those over-the-air updates that keep the vehicle fresh, the ability to add new features and technologies on demand, and improve that service experience for the customer so that each day they're driving the vehicle is better than the previous day that they had it before. It's about clean mobility, but it's about really the enhanced experience, because it's not just about getting people from point A to point B anymore. We're creating that seamlessly connected hub that brings the customer's lifestyle along with the vehicle.
So today, Chrysler has the 300 and the Pacifica, which in both of them are, still excellent vehicles. I'm a big fan of the Pacifica, and even though the 300's been around for a while, it's still a remarkably good vehicle. But they're both in market segments that are in decline, shall we say? To be honest, where can we expect to see more new models coming, beyond the airflow, additional new nameplates coming to the Chrysler brand over the next 5 to 10 years? And what kind of segments do you see the brand growing into?
Yeah, great question, Sam. Clearly, in order for Chrysler to grow, we need some new products in the segment. Interestingly, through COVID, the minivan segment has actually been on an upswing as people have been moving to more suburban areas from urban areas, and they need transportation for their families. But nonetheless, it's critical for us to launch new products in key growth segments like sport utility. And airflow is definitely representative of that large to mid-size crossover segment that you can expect us to come out with some new entries within to serve.
Okay. So getting to the airflow now, a little more detail. 2 years ago at CES in 2020, on this, what was then the Fiat Chrysler stand, there was this Vision Airflow concept, which was a body silhouette, but it was really focused more on the interior concept. But that silhouette is what we're seeing now in its fully fleshed out form with the Airflow that you're showing this year. Tell us a little bit more about that vehicle, and from the materials we've seen so far, there hasn't been a lot given out in terms of its dimensions or anything. But where do you see that fitting into the market?
The airflow from a dimensional perspective really slides nicely in that D to E size crossover utility segment. From an exterior design perspective, it really speaks to the new design theme and direction that we're looking to take Chrysler in. More contemporary, very technology forward exterior design. And we're really excited to introduce the new Chrysler wing logo that's fully lit with LED crystallized lighting and carried through the tail lamps as well. So it's a very aerodynamic stance, which helps with the fuel economy and in the range. We're expecting to deliver between 350 and 400 miles of range with the battery electric technology, along with fast charging capabilities. And we want that dynamic proportion and that really contemporary theme to extend to the interior as well. And we want to take that theme of clean mobility and sustainability by using sustainable premium high-touch materials on the interior as well. A lot of battery electric vehicles today have very plain, somewhat sterile interiors, and we want the airflow and the future Chrysler interior to really be welcoming, comfortable, but also high tech and have all of those premium touch points that consumers expect from Chrysler. We've been really well known in package versatility, so you'll see us introduce some really interesting breakthrough configurability and personalization of the interior space, so that whether a driver or a passenger is in the vehicle, they can customize that experience for themselves.
When you talk about customization, going back, I can't remember, it was 2017 or 2018, Chrysler showed a concept called the Portal, a smaller minivan, that was also had that same idea of configurability, being able to slide seats forward and back, take them out. Do you plan to go to that kind of degree with the airflow, or is it something, maybe not quite that extreme?
Well, you may not see it in the airflow, but we are completely rethinking the portfolio strategy for the new Chrysler products. And you can expect to see us, much like we did almost 40 years ago in creating the minivan segment, we're looking to completely transform that segment again. And so, really interesting and breakthrough concepts with seating design and configurability to accommodate the shifting needs that consumers have for personal use of space and transporting both passengers as well as things. And then with the growth of ride sharing going on in the United States, we want to be able to make sure that the passenger spaces can be configurable, but also sanitary and safe at the same time. Those are very high needs that our customers are looking for, and we want to be able to deliver that in new breakthrough solutions.
Okay. With the airflow at the EV Day last July, it talked about 4 EV platforms across Stellantis, the truck platform, and then the small, medium, and large, Stella large, medium, and small EV platforms. Which one does the airflow sit on? Is that a medium or a large?
It's on Stella large.
Okay. And with the you talked about potentially offering vehicles in some of these other kinds of segments, or to target other parts of the market. Do you see something at some point maybe like the Portal being available, as a solution for ride hailing or robotaxi platforms?
Yeah, potentially. As I mentioned, we are working on several concepts to really redefine the MPV segment as we know it today. It was a segment that we created over 40 years ago, and we don't want to come out with just an updated Pacifica. We really want to rethink what consumers are looking for in that segment, and how can we continue to transform and deliver differentiated solutions that improve the driving experience. Safety is always going to be a paramount need in that segment, and we've been a leader in safety, as well as the only minivan in the segment with PHEV technology. So we think that we position ourselves well in having a battery electric solution, connected experiences, and then also delivering that really unique configurable interior space as well.
Yeah, and I think that that the combination of the plug-in hybrid and that configurable interior is something that's made the Pacifica quite popular among various companies around the world developing automated driving systems. It's been one of the most popular solutions there. Because the sliding doors and everything. Waymo is obviously using many of them, and AutoX and quite a few other companies have used the Pacifica hybrid. So I think that's something like that seems like it would be a great solution. How potentially how big do you see the Chrysler lineup getting? We're talking maybe 4 or 5 models, fewer than that, more than that. Obviously you can't give me specifics, but just kind of. I certainly can't give you specifics, but I think you're in that range. We only have 2 nameplates today, right?
and so we're looking to develop and launch a new vehicle pretty much every year from 2025 forward.
Is that when we're going to see the Airflow launch? Is in 2025 is the first new Chrysler?
The first new Chrysler will launch in 2025. I can't tell you whether, in fact, it will be the Airflow.
Okay. All right. And will we see any, aside from ongoing updates to the Pacifica? Can we expect to see anything else new from Chrysler before 2025?
Yes, for sure. We have to keep the portfolio fresh for the next few years until the brand new models start to launch. And so you can see that we will be launching by the end of the year new 300 Buzz models, and as well as doing some relaunches of the major enhancements that we had on the Pacifica in 2021 that, because of some production starts and stops with chip shortages, sure, really didn't get amplified in the marketplace. So we'll be talking again about the addition of all-wheel drive, the Pinnacle series, certainly promoting the plug-in hybrid and the clean technology and great fuel economy that delivers, along with the stow and go seating that we're so well known for in our minivan lineup.
Yeah, the 300, it's become, over the last 20 years, almost 20 years, since it launched in its current form, has become something of an icon for Chrysler.
Yes.
As that platform goes away, and as you make that shift away from internal combustion engines, which has been a key part of that, do you see a vehicle like that continuing to be a part of the Chrysler lineup? Is there still space for something like a big sedan?
We think that there is, and that there could be, and the 300 brand name is so well known and so well recognized and positively viewed in the market. We haven't ruled out the possibility of launching a large sedan in a battery electric form in the Chrysler portfolio.
All right. Anything else about where Chrysler is going that I haven't asked you about that you think the listeners should be considering and thinking about?
Yeah, I think the one thing I would like to mention is the fact that when you're transforming a brand like Chrysler, that has been really well known as a company as well. We have to make sure that we're respecting the fact that people still think of Chrysler as a company and take good care in how we go through that transformation process. And so it's not just about creating and launching new products, but it's really about also transforming that customer experience. And the kinds of things that customers who want battery electric products and more advanced technologies, they want a different kind of purchase and ownership experience as well that is highly digitized. They want to have that closer relationship with the company that they're doing business with. And so we are looking at ways to completely reinvent that process and improve that experience and deliver on that Chrysler brand promise from day one throughout the ownership cycle as well.
All right. Well, with that, I'm going to let you go and get ready for your next call. I really appreciate your time today. This has it's been really helpful in understanding where Chrysler is going and what you're doing with the airflow. Chris Feuell, thank you so much today.
Thanks, Sam. Appreciate it. Nice to meet with you.
All right. One other thing that in all likelihood would have appeared at CES had Waymo not canceled their plans to appear at CES is an announcement that just came out that they were partnering with Geely for a custom robotaxi. And, so this, Geely is the Chinese automaker that also owns Volvo and Polestar and a number of brands that are sold in China, including a brand called Zeekr with a Z or Z, depending on where you're from. And so they've developed this custom robotaxi for Waymo that it's electric as you would expect, and it's basically a small minivan, and unlike things like the Cruise Origin or the Zoox robotaxi, all the seats are facing in the same direction. It doesn't use carriage seating, which I thought was interesting. You guys have any thoughts on this thing?
I wish they would just make this and sell it to people as a car. And not a robot. I mean, they can make the robotaxi, whatever. That's going to be, who knows when that's going to happen.
Make a version with controls.
Yeah, it's like a tiny ID Buzz is what it is.
Yeah.
If they were like, hey, you go, here's a nice small minivan that's an electric. And it's funny because it's designed in Sweden. Well, I wonder what company helped them design it. Yeah.
Who knows?
So yeah, no, I dig it. I think it is weird that it doesn't have, carriage seating if it's going to be a robotaxi. Everyone's, I mean, if you can sit, if you're all going to just be sitting in there on your way to wherever you're going, you can talk to each other. Maybe it's just, because some, you'll have group, you pick up one person and another person carpooling, and then maybe those people don't want to talk. I guess you could do that, but then maybe you could just have the seats spin around. You get in, you're like, no, I don't want to talk to you, and you spin it around.
Well, I get the impression that they're also going to sell a version of this, at least in China, for ride hailing, taxi services, that is not self-driving. That is a conventional version of this. But yeah, I think it would be cool if they did offer something like this. I think I don't know how huge the market would be, at least in North America. I think maybe in other regions it would probably be a bigger market. It probably wouldn't be a huge seller here, but it'd be cool to have something like this, a smaller type of minivan.
Yeah, I think people want to go and do things with their minivans now and their vans.
Some people it's smaller than a minivan. A lot of people like the whole sliding door access of a minivan, but don't necessarily want the minivan, the big size. Yeah. So I guess depending on an actual minivan. Like a mini minivan. A mini minivan. So this would be the mini minivan if you wanted something that was just the mini minivan. They should sell it that way.
Think how much room it has, because it has a really high ceiling, it has low, entrance, so you could put so much room for activities. So
you get minivan without having to say you drive a minivan. Instead, I drive this really cool Waymo thing.
You get
I drive a Zeek. No, what is the name that Zeekr. Zeekr. I drive a Zeekr, which sounds like a name for a Muppet, but okay, I drive a Zeekr. It's got really crazy orange hair that bounces back and forth.
Yeah, it bounces. Okay. Its arms move in tandem.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, let's answer some listener questions. First up from Adam J. Have any of you watched the new comedy American Auto on NBC? I highly recommend it. Wasn't expecting much, but it's actually very funny, and the auto industry jokes are great. You can watch on Peacock too.
I watched the 2 episodes that are out. So my rule of thumb for shows is they get 3 episodes. The pilot is always going to be a little wonky because you have to shoot that, write it, shoot it, and you have to introduce all the characters and everything this show's about in 22 minutes.
Right.
And so you're doing a lot of work. And so the second one, you're like, okay, months later, after that pilot's been ordered, we can do this second episode. And so now they're trying to like figure out the characters, trying to massage everything. By the 3rd episode, that's when you feel like they have like a little bit of a stride, and then you sort of figure it out from there. The first 2 episodes, the creator he's created some other things that I like, and it just kind of, I felt like it missed on a lot. I feel like I was trying too hard. That's my on the first 2 episodes, and I'm like, okay, well, so I'm gonna give it 1 more episode, see how it goes. That's my.
The one I'm with you on the episode, give it 3 shots and see. But the only thing that I really thought that really did actually make me laugh was when they were revealing the car, and there were the guys, I don't know, like breakdancing in front of it, and the crazy music, and they were mocking the whole show of when you reveal a car and rip the sheet off in an auto show. I'm like, that was cute and like sloppy but cute. I got it, but I don't know. We'll see after episode 3. I'm with you, Robbie. I need 1 more episode, but I'm so far not super keen on it.
Yeah. I have not watched it, so I might give it a shot, but we'll see.
Give it a shot. I mean, there's parts of it, but there's some parts you're just like,
Is it less funny because we do work in the auto industry?
That's the problem. I think people get very. It's very the suspension of disbelief is really difficult when you work in an industry like any show about newsrooms. Like I can't think there was a show called Newsrooms, and I've worked in like a working newsroom, like a big open, and it's just people swearing and yelling at each other the entire time, and that should be fine. But they have these long soliloquies, and these like no one does that. No one has time because you got to file, and so you start getting in your head about those sorts of things. So it's
maybe that's it. Maybe that's why it's not hitting us.
I think that might have just been because it was written by Aaron Sorkin.
That's also true.
If somebody else did a newsroom show, it might be different, but.
So I think there's give it if you know what I'm not going to yuck your yum, Adam. I think if you enjoy it,
if you enjoy it,
keep watching it.
Watch what you like.
Exactly. That's what everyone should do: is watch what you like, or listen to what you like.
Yeah.
Darkwood Thief asks, as I was listening to this conversation, I wondered, and referring to our previous discussion of solar roofs, I wondered, could solar-powered passenger-carrying trains be successful in America?
I guess we'd have to get trains to be more successful first. I feel
it's so weird that people in America hate trains.
We're anti-train.
They absolutely love trains, which is sort of weird. I'm from a town I'm from Tehachapi. And if you're a train person, you automatically know what Tehachapi is because it's a Tehachapi loop, which is a thing when I
wait. Is that in California? Where the heck is
It's in California. It's up
I can't even say it.
It's above the mountain. It's above Bakersfield in the mountains.
Okay.
If you're super into trains, you know exactly what I'm saying when I say Tehachapi. Like, the Tehachapi Loop and blah, blah, blah. So, there were trains and actual hobos would hop off the trains in my hometown.
Do they have a stick with a little red and white?
Never had the stick. I'm very disappointed. But then on the other end, everyone's like, oh, trains are dumb. Why would you take a train? And then when you go to Europe and you get on a train, like, this is awesome. This is how we should be doing trains. But
we didn't buy. I don't know what happened. And there was a time when America was super into. I think of, but it's Russ's grandfather. He was super into trains, but the man, would be 105 years old right now. That's not.
I think if you live in the Northeast and you can take the Excella, I think a lot of people like taking that. Or if you live in Connecticut or other places around New York, and you take commuter trains, people appreciate that. If I have to go to Chicago, I love taking the train to Chicago. It's better than flying to Chicago. But I think part of the problem is the U.S. is compared to Europe and a lot of other regions. It's the population centers are so spread apart that it becomes really hard to take a train.
Yeah, because you're like, well, I can just get on a plane, and the plane's like $30 or $50 or whatever weird deal Southwest Airlines has at the time.
So I feel like the answer to this question is yes, solar-powered passenger-carried trains could be as successful as non-solar-powered passenger-carried trains.
I think the solar power is not enough to actually run the train. I don't think we're at that technology, but you could use the solar power to do other things. The trains still have to use electricity for all the fancy things. The lounge car itself probably uses a lot of electricity, making, I don't know, mixed drinks. I don't know what happens in the lounge car, but I'm sure they're making pina coladas nonstop the whole time. And microwaving burritos.
Modern trains are all diesel electric hybrids, so they're all electrified anyway. And if you can put solar panels on the roof of the cars to collect some energy and put some batteries in there, yeah, it's certainly something you could do. It would be worthwhile to add solar to trains in order to make them more efficient. But they're already way more efficient than aviation or road driving a vehicle. So when you look at the amount of energy it takes to move either people or freight by train, it is by far the most efficient way to get stuff around.
Plus, you get to say, "I'm on a train."
Yeah,
trains
are cool.
I love taking the train when I can, just because you don't have to go through all the hassle of going to an airport, going through the airport and security and all the other nonsense. You can show up 5 minutes before the train gets there, step on the train and go. And more often than not, usually the train stations are right downtown. Chicago, you get off at Union Station, you're right in the middle of downtown. It's way better than flying to Chicago.
And you can get seats that have little tables, and you can play Uno.
Yeah,
there you go.
I mean, you can't play Uno on a plane because it's all flying, and everyone's sitting in the same direction.
Even in coach class, you get way more room to spread out and move around than you do on a plane.
You can just get up and go to the lounge. You get a microwave burrito, or you can bring your food on.
Yeah. All right. ZBM327 on Twitter asks, will BEVs open up opportunities for some cars manufacturers entering the North American market due to emissions no longer being a factor?
I think it's possible, but you also have to take into a lot of the safety regulations, like the front of a car.
So different. Yeah.
Yeah, you had to do so many different things to a car to bring it to the United States versus what the rules are in Europe or Japan. And I think that's one of the excuses that Honda uses for not bringing us the Honda E. Mm-hmm. I don't know if it's a real reason, but I think it's an excuse. I bring the Honda E over here. I don't know why you didn't do that, but fine. We got the Mini SE, so whatever.
Yeah.
He's not bitter though. Not bitter at all.
I'm not bitter. I hassled Honda so much. I emailed essentially every Honda person I knew. I wrote multiple articles about it. We're not getting the Honda E, and I understand the reasoning.
Stop, Robbie. It's not happening.
Yeah. Stop trying to make fetch happen. You're not getting the Honda E. But yeah, rules.
Yeah, the crash safety regulations and a lot of other stuff, are still very expensive. It does make it simpler, but on the other hand, you also have to set up some sort of distribution network, parts and service, and a lot of that stuff. There's still a huge investment involved with that. So some will try to enter the market. Whether they'll be successful, we'll see. All right. Craig Lemoyne, here's a question. Does the Honda Accord really deserve to be on Car and Driver's 10 Best list every year? Nice car, but it almost seems like a gimmick that they put it on there every stinking time. As the alumni of the Car and Driver staff.
Yeah, speak to this, Sam. Okay. Explain yourself.
Not me, him.
Him. Roberto, explain yourself.
I'm actually wearing a Car and Driver shirt right now that they gave us out during one of the things. No, you know what, Car and Driver, the testing team over there, they're not messing around. They don't take anything lightly. They take their job very seriously. Everything they do with purpose. And get in a Honda Accord. That's all you have to do. Just get in a Honda Accord every few years, and when you close that door, you're like, oh, what? Okay, yeah, this is why. This is why this car is what it is, and it'll continue to be what it is. As long as Honda doesn't mess it up, it sort of deserves to be on the 10 best list every year. It's a solid, good car.
Is there anybody who would, journalists that, not even if you're car and drive, but is there anyone who's like, no, the Honda Accord, that thing's a piece of poo. That's terrible. Nobody really says that about the Accord, right? Yeah. Everybody you're like, oh, I don't, maybe this little thing, or maybe that little thing, or I don't like this change, or I don't like that change. But overall, oh no, darn good car. So it makes sense. It's not unwarranted that it shows up there.
It's one of those things. You get in a Honda, you close that door, and then like every other car in that segment, like when you close the door, you're like, okay, but it's just for some reason that. Boom, you're like, oh, that's quality right there. That's the stuff right there.
Yeah, it's a good car.
All right. So the answer is yes. Deserves to be there.
Yeah, as long as
3 Series BMW, maybe not.
Yeah, they're not going to put it there just because they're putting it there. They're the team over there. They're not messing around. They're not like, yeah, this will be fun to do for the lulz. No, that is definitely not the testing team. Having worked with them, they are definitely not for the lulz type people.
All right. While we're recording, another one came in on Twitter from Brianna Wu. She asks, should I install an aftermarket stereo with CarPlay in my 997? So that's a late 90s Porsche 911. Or should I wait until next year and see if Porsche puts out the mythical PCCM Plus that has been rumored forever? So that's Porsche's aftermarket solution that provides CarPlay support for older 911s. I would say, I think the 997, I believe, is the one that Brianna just bought this past summer somewhere down south and drove back up to Massachusetts that she was thinking about flipping. I would say go ahead and put in. You can get a doubled-in kit for to install any doubled-in stereo head unit in a 997. Just go ahead and do that. There's lots of good CarPlay / Android Auto aftermarket head units available now in the $500, $600, $700 range. There's even some decent ones, in the $300 to $400 range now. Go get one of those and drop it in there, and you'll be a lot happier, and it will probably work as well or better than anything that Porsche eventually puts out, assuming they do put it out.
Do you have a tape player or a CD player?
In the current one?
In her 997 right now.
I don't know what she's got in there.
If I don't know. On one hand, they're like, CarPlay makes things so much easier because of text messaging. Really, it comes down the text messaging and navigation. I can get
being able to do that by voice.
Yeah, that is really the selling point of CarPlay to me. If that's something you feel like you need, then do it. If you think I'm sure Porsche will probably do it. They're going to do it. And if you buy, the doubled in and you throw it in, and then Porsche comes out with it, just take it out and sell it. It's universal doubled in. You could sell it to anyone. And you can find a BRZ
put the original
owner.
One back in there too.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, hold on to that.
Keep all the original stuff. Make sure the person, if you're installing it, which I feel like Brianna's probably going to be installing it herself because she knows what
she does that.
Yeah, so you can get a crutch-filled kit and then just put the little thing in, and then it's very easy to sort of reverse that. Don't let rando guy 3000 do it who just ruins who ruins your. I in the 90s I used to help people put stereos in their car, and there's a lot of bad stereo installers.
Oh yeah,
like what is going on back here? Like what is there's just open wires sitting there? I'm like, oh my god. Yeah, so you can always swap it out, and then when the Porsche one comes out, every BRZ owner needs a better stereo, as far as I'm concerned. It's doubled in, so you could just go on Craigslist and hey, you own a BRZ? Hey, you tired of trash?
Yep.
I got something for you.
I got something for you.
All right. Final question from Wes asks, if you didn't review cars for a living and get to experience so many regularly, what would your daily or weekend drives be? I would imagine being able to test drive so many means that you no longer have to seek a particular vehicle you'd normally obsess over. Well, I mean, we all own vehicles of our own, but if you weren't a reviewer, what would you drive?
I would be driving what I'm driving now, which is the BRZ. Just because I like the rear-wheel drive. It has to be something with a manual transmission. If I wasn't, being a reviewer, I was driving, all the cars I owned up until someone gave us the X-Type was a manual transmission. And of course the Kona because it's an EV. But I'd probably be driving the BRZ or something else in that sort of, I don't even know what else. Maybe a GTI.
Gosh,
Golf GTI. Golf GTI is a great car, by the way.
Fun. It is a great car. I like the GTI. So, gosh, I have a Charger. It's a 2010, and the reason it's older is because I don't need to buy a new car because of what you're saying. I'm a reviewer, but if I were a reviewer, I'd probably replaced it. But I don't know. I feel like I still would have picked something, probably not a great big R sedan like that, but some sporty little crossover probably. I like the crossover thing. I have, the kids until recently were both home all the time, and you need that little extra space for kids' stuff. And when I have a tiny car as a press car, I always feel like I wish I had a little bit more room in the trunk. Like, you didn't have to be like, I got to get another car and come home for that thing, for the mulch. But I think I'd probably drive a sporty little crossover, some fun little crossover. I don't know which one. I don't know what I would drive if I didn't do this. I've been doing this for 10 years. I can't make that decision.
I feel like I saw like it was a Datsun 2000, 69 Datsun 2000, then a 90 Honda Civic Hatchback, and then another like a 92 Honda Civic Hatchback, and then a Del Sol, and then there's like, I'm essentially just leading up to like I'm pretty predictable when it comes. Oh, a WRX Sport Wagon. If that hadn't exploded, I would still have my 2000.
See, like, and I have the weirdest
WRX
mix.
Sport Wagon.
I had like the first car that I bought was a Jetta with a manual transmission. I had the Turbo Beetle. I had a Jeep Liberty. I had a Scion XD, the saddest
and you
car
are
I've
all
ever
over
driven.
the place.
Yeah, right. And now I have a Charger. So there's no rhyme or reason to what I drive. So I'm like, what do I? No, makes no sense whatsoever. Whatever strikes my fancy at the moment, I decide I need to buy a new car.
Yeah, I've gone through. When in college, I had an '84 GMC S15, went to a '91 Mustang 5-liter LX. Then went from that to a Dodge Stratus that I drove for a few years when the kids were younger. And I was commuting a lot, then to a 2005 Mustang, and then after that, that's when I had the got the Miata after the Mustang, for my wife, in the years we've been married, she's gone from a Mercury Sable to a VW Passat wagon to a Jetta wagon, and now the Civic. So. And we keep our cars for a long time anyway. I've always done that. We've always put a lot, keep them as long as we can.
I've never purchased a new car. I've leased two cars. We leased the Fiat 500 after the WRX exploded, and my wife was in schools, and we lived in San Francisco, so we couldn't afford to buy anything. And the Fiat 500 lease, it was a manual transmission, which was what we wanted, and it was sort of cutesy and weird, and it had
and easy to park in a place like San Francisco.
Easy to park, and it was $120 a month.
Yeah.
So I've never, and the Kona electric, which we're leasing, but other than those, like I've never, like, both of those were sort of like, well, I guess the electric you got to be new, but before that, like the only new vehicle I've ever purchased is my my Vespa.
Wow, I've never bought a used car. I've always bought new cars. And I wouldn't, what I was saying, I wouldn't have an electric or a hybrid probably if I wasn't doing this. Because I think I'd be someone to be like, bah, whatever. I really do. I would be that person. I'd be the person like, I don't need this new. I just give me my gas engine. So it would definitely, until it was, I don't know that I would have had hybrids. Or I would not have a plug-in hybrid in my driveway right now.
It really is. Once you drive one, you're like, oh.
Yeah, that's it. Like, you kind of have to experience one to go, wait, these are actually kind of cool with like an EV or a hybrid, Otherwise, you're like, I don't know. Who moved my cheese?
When the time comes to replace the Civic, we probably will replace it with an EV. But for now, my wife only drives it, 7,500 miles a year. Yeah. So it doesn't really make any difference. It's 34 miles per gallon. So
that'll last for 1,000 years.
Go. Yeah. All right, that's it for this time. Thank you so much, everybody. Happy New Year. And,
Happy New Year, people.
Happy New
talk
Year.
to you all next time.
Bye.
Bye. All the barking happened at the end.
All you homeowners have unique needs. Some feel the need to leave up holiday decorations year-round. Others have the need to use their garage as practice space for their new metal band. And because each homeowner has unique needs, Geico helps you get the right coverage for your home and what's in it. That way, you get exactly what's right for you, even if your needs are unique. Get more with Geico.
Have you ever killed a houseplant before? Don't worry, you are not alone. But what if I told you you're not destined to be a plant killer? What if I told you you could not only fill your home with gorgeous, luscious, happy, thriving plants, but live a happier life through caring for them? Hey, new plant friend, my name is Maria. I am a former plant killer turned happy plant lady and host of the Growing Joy with Plants podcast, where it is my life's mission to help you grow happy plants and thrive alongside them. Because when you learn to care for plants, you really learn to slow down, connect with nature, and nurture yourself too. Each week, I share expert tips, inspiring conversations, and soulful planty wisdom to help you grow a greener, happier life. So if you're ready to turn your plant struggles into plant joy and get the green thumb you've always dreamed of, search Growing Joy with Plants wherever you listen to podcasts and hit subscribe. That's Growing Joy with Plants podcast. Let's grow some joy together.